Hello, everyone, and welcome to the stream. So happy to have you all. Hello, Catapult Girl. Hello, Scarthmahar. Hello, Alistair Nia. Hello, Christy, and hello, Knight. Thank you all for coming. I know it's been a bit since we did one of these streams, but here we are. In brief announcements, this will be my last of my afternoon streams for the foreseeable future. If you're in my Discord or I guess on Blue Sky or anything, you saw that I got a new job recently, which is pretty heckin' poggers to have. So because of that, I'll be working like 8 to 5 every day. So that means I can't do afternoon streams anymore. I will still be trying to do my Monday stream, my every other Monday streams of Nexus Forlorn Legacy. Now that Maris seems to be, pretty recovered from his top surgery, but that is of course still pending on how he feels. For picking up this book again, I'm gonna, I'll try and figure something out maybe on Saturdays if I'm otherwise available, or if like Yuko's out of town someday or whatever, I can do a stream then. But in the meantime, this will be our last of the afternoon streams, and we'll have to temporarily be putting this book away. I do want to continue with the book because I'm enjoying it with you guys. So, we'll see when that can be arranged. But I'll do a more formal announcement on Blue Sky with basically just copying the one that I did in my Discord. Yep, the lad's got some cool scars now. Beginning my Corpo Cydia arc as well. Okay, with all that out of the way, previously on Titandeath, we learned that the Imperial Hunters are our lovely all-female Titan Legion, are sex positive, openly sapphic. They just fully bone each other all the time, which we respect. And also, apparently occasionally like the incels. And we learned that our main POV, Imperial Hunter, had a torrid one-night stand basically with one of the bad guy Titan Legion guys from the Death's Head Titan Legion, and she got pregnant, and her daughter is one of her princeps. I'll try pronouncing it that way this time since I kept getting yelled at about Principe, and so her daughter doesn't know that she's half evil because apparently that is in fact genetic, is your villainy score. And then we just had a big meeting with their mom, who's the founder of the Titan Legio, who was basically being like, yeah, we're getting reassigned. Another Titan Legion's taking stuff up here. We're going to go fight somewhere else. And there was this huge hissy fit about it. And the mom, the big mom, I think it's Esha Mohana Vai. She had only got a few more days to live, basically, as she just outlasted her Titan piloting tank shelf life, because she's been alive for like 150 years. And I guess Juvenile treatments weren't a thing back then, because like in standard 40k, most rich people and powerful people live like 2 to 4 centuries because of Juvenile treatments, but I guess that's not a thing right now here in 30k. Okay. So, 1 second. It's saying my microphone isn't responding. What in the gosh darn? It's here. Yeah, silly OBS. Okay. So, yeah, without further ado, I think we're gonna hop back in here. I think we're at the top. We're gonna start at the top of this page because I don't remember exactly where we were. I'm also not doing BGM this stream because I listened to the last one and I definitely was drowning myself out with BGM. As much as I love those sweet beats, I'm really bad at determining what is the appropriate level of sound, so probably just better not to use it. All right. The glorious. Oh God, I don't know who's talking. Okay, I think this is the Great Mother. Um, that glorious day, I could have ridden aside from the chase. I could have chosen not to take my horse out in the first place. I could have watched the knights cross the finishing line from the stand with my sisters and mother. But I was a huntress, so I did go out. I am impulsive, and I chafed against the restrictions of our culture. So when the time came and my brother dropped the trophy, I made the decision to pick it up. I did not feel guided. I did not feel it was inevitable. I remember making that decision, daughter. There was no great cosmic weight bearing down on me, forcing me to do it. I chose to as surely as a hunter chooses to loose his arrow at his quarry, or not. As surely as you choose the moment to unleash the solar furies of your plasma destroyer. It was my choice, Esha. Moana floated close to the glass front of her tank again. Choices are made by men and women all over the galaxy every single moment of every single day. These are conscious moments of decision. They are what drives history onwards. It is man's will that beats the path of time, not the designs of gods or fate, or whatever you wish to call it. I am my own mistress. That is why we, of all the species in the galaxy, are the favored of the machine god and made in his holy image. Nothing dictates what I shall do. I command gods in his name. They do not command me. Do you understand? As you say, mother, said Esha, bowing her head respectfully. I've understood since the beginning. Moana Monkaravai drifted back in the murk. You are always among the cleverest. I'm proud of you. You know that it is will that allows us to master the Titans. You are possessed of it in abundance. It is a rare gift, and so I have made another choice. Esha looked up. It is time for me to name my successor as Grand Master of the Legio Solaria. I have decided that you should bear the mantle. This is my pronouncement. Let it be so from this moment forth. You are the heir apparent. For once, Esha lost her composure, her stance loosened. Why me? I am not the best warrior or the best leader. There are others that are worthier. I disagree. You are leader of Second Manipul, and you are the last of my true daughters. Continuity is powerful symbolically, but it is no justification for my naming as your heir. Daughter, there have been better princeps in this legio, and there have been better leaders, but of those of us surviving, you possess both qualities in the best proportions. You will do this, for I so command. I will announce my decision soon. I thought it kinder to let you know in advance. Do you think you'll fall in battle? Esha asked. Is the situation so dire that even you fear for the Legio? The Great Mother laughed loudly. The machinery enabling her to speak was confounded by the strength of her humor, and interpreted as a barking synthetic warble. Arr, 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 arr. I have no fear for my engines or my daughters. We are the Legio Solaria. Never has a foe bested us. Never have we turned our face from battle. By our blood and our will, the Legio will persist for all time. Then why now? Why name me as successor? I called you here with a body loose because I wished to see you together. This could be the last time the grandmother, mother, and daughter are present at once. It is selfish, but I am still human. I'm the last of the founding mothers. An era is passing for our order, for better or for worse. But I have no fear for the Legio, Esha, because it will be in safe hands. Your hands. Time to hydrate. Then what is happening? You know what is happening. Say it aloud. I cannot, said Esha, but she had known since she had seen the candles in the Sallyport and the unfinished equations. She dropped her head. To name it was to make it real. Then I shall say it, said Mohana Mankadavai proudly. I am dying, my daughter, and I do not have long left. Chapter 13. Doc Mechanicum. Ah, we get some more of the cuckoo for corn puffs incels. Let's go. Take this opportunity to have some more water. Brightness made Hairtek's headaches worse. Between battles, he craved darkness. The lumens in his room lacked a dimming function. They glared at his face spitefully. One night when drunk, he methodically broke all of them but one. The last he covered over with a sheet of red cloth. The result was a dark, bloody glow, the same as the combat lighting of the Nuntio Dolores Cizella. It comforted and disturbed him in equal measure. His body needled him with 100 little pains. His head pounded. His soul urged him into communion with his machine. He refused to give in. His will was stronger than his cravings. It was the middle of the night watch. Hairtek stared at his patchwork trophy flag in the ruddy dark. He drank from a spherical glass of Amasek that shook in his hands. He felt sick, unable to eat. The squares in the flag were all the same color in the red light. Hard to tell apart, meaningless even. They seemed a poor way to commemorate his victories. The skulls with it his warlord Cizella had mounted upon its carapace pediment were more fitting. Perhaps he should... Oh, why by Terra would I want to mount skulls in my sleeping quarters? He muttered to himself. He sipped the Amasek. His sense of taste was dulled. The subtle flavors of the alcohol escaped him. All that was left was the bird at the back of the throat. He took little pleasure from the flavor or the effects, but stolidly drank it anyway. He rubbed at his head. His hair had been falling out so quickly of late that he had shaved the remainder off. His fingers traced the differing textures of scar-smooth skin and the velvety patches where hair still grew. He found it soothing, and he fell into a trance balanced between calmness and the raging agony of his headache. The door chime sang. He had a visitor. Go away, he said, not loud enough for anyone but himself to hear. The door opened, flooding the room with weak lumen glow from the corridor that was, to Hairtek's eyes, unbearably bright. A shadow fell across the patchwork flag. What do you want, Kaysen? Said Hairtek. He didn't look at the door, but it could have been to no one else. Only his servant had access to the lock codes. Good evening, Princeps Majoris. The voice was unfamiliar, age-cracked and haughty. You're not Kaysen. Hairtek twisted around in his chair. The motion brought a wave of nausea. Alkali saliva flooded his mouth. Because it was capitalized, it really seemed like it was some silly 40K name. Kind of like, maybe it was just like a Kali from fucking League of Legends. His stomach turned and he swallowed the rising vomit. He was drunker than he had thought. The adept of the new Mechanicum entered his room. He was tall but unnaturally thin, and his lower body was the shape was of a shape that suggested a form of locomotion other than legs. The hem of the black robes that covered him from head to toe stirred around him with a life of its own. He raised a delicate silver hand. How should I do this voice now that I know he's a tech priest? Oh, the problems of idleness. Legio Stellaria, withdraw, and you have nothing to fight. I am resting. You are drinking, Princeps Majoris. It is better than taking more combat stims. One addiction is enough for me. Heretic automatically rose the glass to his lips, but did not sip. He thought better of drinking more and set the glass on a side table where the bottle of Amasec stood. We go into battle soon. Iridium will be ours. Hey, Wolkie, welcome, welcome. You know that's not true. We lack the fleet to defy theirs, and so cannot press our advantage in engine numbers. Things are as they were before, in deadlock. I would like to change that. Wouldn't we all? Said Heretic rancorously. Perhaps I should come back on another occasion. Although your servant assured me this was a good time to find you. Bloody Cason. He has no right to say who can and who cannot visit me. Heretic turned his chair about and looked at the tech priest. The corridor light burned his eyes. The priest a shifting silhouette against it. Heretic's discomfort was obvious enough, so the tech priest moved aside. The throbbing purr of a small grav motor stung Heretic's head. Without the priest to block the light, it fell on Heretic with full force. He held up his hand. The tech priest went to the corner of his room and hovered there, a nightmare apparition. Heretic wondered if he was indeed asleep. What do you want with me? I come with an offer. Heretic snorted. It must be a bad one for you to be sneaking around in the dead of the late watch. Night and day make no difference to me, said the priest. Dark and light are one of many divisions that are arbitrary and limiting, as they so evidently are aboard this station. There is no night and day here, only what is imposed by us. Victory and defeat are similar. They are choices. You wish for victory. I have a new way to gain it. Choose victory. What a stupid thing to say, said Heretic. Any princeps wants victory. Not so much as you, said the priest. You are driven. You have a cause. Don't we all have a cause? Not as personal as yours. What are you talking about? Do you think me worried the others censure me for withdrawing? Wesselix, Manipul 18 are alive only because of what I did. He covers his shame with mockery. I am not talking about that. You were right to pull back, objectively speaking. What then, objectively speaking, are you talking about? Heretic snarled. Your offspring. Heretic turned his face out of the light. His migraine built, he abandoned his attempts at moderation, grabbed up his drink and downed it in one. It helped a little. Legio Stellaria bitches, he gasped. One bore me a child. She gave it to the damn priesthood, practically laughed in my face about it. He would have been a fierce warrior, I'm sure, had he been born into this Legio. Now what is he? A servitor at best? A mumbling, obsessive caster of nuts and bolts? Drawing patterns in oil to guess at the ailments of machines? He glanced at the cowled figure hovering in the corner. No offense, he said insincerely. Do you know why we wear black? Asked the priest. I genuinely do not care, said Heretic. Get out! We wear black to forget Mars, said the priest, making no move towards the door. Your assessment is correct. The old Mechanicum are obsessed with meaningless ritual. They are cowards. They are too scared to uncover the truth. Black is the color of the void. It is the color of eternity. It is the color of the ignorance we wish to abolish with the light of knowledge. Why not wear white then, if you're so illuminated? Said Heretic sarcastically. We will when our task is done, and all is known, and not one scrap of knowledge lies beyond the grasp of the new Mechanicum. You are correct to be disdainful of the so-called Adeptus Mechanicus, these colleagues of mine who have abandoned all claim to independence. The Emperor would deny us the full measure of the machine god's knowledge. Now we are free to take it. The last doubts have been removed, but until the time that all is known, we will wear black as a reminder that darkness enwraps the minds of men. By our efforts, out of ignorance shall rise bliss. I am here to ask you to join me on this quest. I know. He held up his silver hands in a display of modesty. It is quite the opportunity. Heretic laughed. What a fine pitch, my friend. He picked up the bottle, then neck rattled against the glass as he poured. But I'm not buying. I've heard better from street hawkers. If that kind of thing worked on me, this room would be full of gewgaws and silk scarves from 100 worlds. He looked around pointedly. As you can see, it does not work on me. Now get out of here. Your damn gravenpeller is making my headache worse. The Magos Augmetics made a disturbing growling sound. The movements of his robes calmed, and he sank closer to the floor. Although still he did not touch it, and he did not leave. Are your oral sensors in bad function? Said Heretic sarcastically. Get out! I assure you my hearing is far superior to yours. Allow me to tell you a story. Let me take a sip of water. The guy's voice is fun, but it's a bit difficult. Marvelous, barked Heretic. His feet slammed into the floor and he stood unsteadily. He forced himself to appear more sober than he felt, and moved on the priest. If you're not going to hover out, I'll push you out. And don't give me admonishments of blasphemy. I'm a loyal disciple of the triple god, but I'm more drunk now than I am devout. Heretic reached for the priest. His hand got no closer than a decimeter before his entire body locked up. His implants burned, and a buzzing pain gripped his nerves, sending his muscles into spasm lock. His teeth clacked loudly as his jaw snapped shut. I am going to tell you a story, said the priest, and you are going to listen. When I have finished, you will be intrigued enough to hear me out. Once you have heard me out, you will agree to my request. I promise you, I will assume your agreement, seeing as you cannot currently speak. Heretic made a strangled noise that was most definitely not of agreement. The priest ignored him. There are many of my people who still cling to their oaths to the Emperor. They are misguided. The Emperor is not the Omnissiah, the machine god main flesh, but a trickster of the gravest sort, whose actions go against all we of Mars have fought for since the age of technology came to a close in fire and death. We are the disciples of knowledge, and the Emperor has the gall to come to our world, to conquer us in all but name, and lay down the law on what is forbidden and what is not. The Crimson Accords are nothing but chains. Now we of the new Mechanicum are free of them. We have learned many secrets he would have denied us. I think an introduction is in order, yes? My name is Ardum Protoss. I am fortunate to count myself the first of the followers of Sota Nul, emissary of the new Mechanicum. To the War Master and representative of the Fabricator General, Kelbor Hall. I find myself humbled by the honors given me, for she has seen fit to make me a member of her synod. He chuckled self-deprecatingly. I work hard to prove her faith in me just. Our denomination of the Cult Mechanicus is concerned with the power of the Imperium. You know a little of this. I think Apostle Vorjuk Krail has done a fine job in spreading the truth of the universe to your Legio, he said, referring to the word-bearer attached to the Legio Volpa as spiritual advisor. He preaches the creed of the old gods to you, and I note that your warrior cadres have taken to honoring the one known as Khorne, the god of war. This is probably wise. It is best not to upset them, said Ardum Protoss. What Lorgar's fanatics have not seen is that these gods are nothing compared to the power and the majesty of the machine god. Already, members of our growing cult are using the grace of the Omnissiah, the true Omnissiah, not Terra's false prophet, to harness the might of the warp. Gallifield's warp missiles, void shields, all these things you are familiar with. But their underlying principles can be turned to so much more. Through novel exploitations of these technologies, we will gain mastery first over the energies of the Empyrean, then over the lesser entities, until finally the very gods themselves will bend the knee and recognize the supremacy of the machine god. Though I say that to you in confidence, one wouldn't wish them to find out. Need more water after that. He laughed dryly. He, unlike they, is master of both realities, materium and immaterium. For the rule of his laws holds sway in both. Veritably, we of the new Mechanicum are fortunate, liberated from a false god, to witness the truth of reality. What I am here to offer you is a place in this. There are other beings who inhabit the oceans of the Imperium. They can be caught and bound into machineries in the mortal realm. Do you understand me? Grunt once for yes, twice for no. Heretic grunted once. Saliva that had gathered in his mouth flooded down his chin. Good! My intention is to create the greatest engine of war ever seen. He held up one mechanical hand, palm up. A warlord titan. He held up the other. The soul of a greater warp entity. He brought them together with a metallic clap. Together, an engine of furious destruction, with its machine spirit replaced by the essence of a being of the warp. The god machine will function with greater efficiency and respond with greater alacrity. You do not know me, Princeps Majoris Tarrant Heretic, but I know you. You have been chosen as a fine candidate for this process. Imagine, if you will, fusion, not with the near-living mind of a titan, but touching the soul of a demigod with your own. He leaned closer. Tempting, yes? I will release you now. A loud snap emanated from the adept's robes, and the pain holding Heretic in place went out. Heretic dropped to his hands and knees on the floor, and vomited loudly. How disappointingly biological! Protoss floated backwards, away from Heretic as he heaved liquid upon the floor. This is madness, said Heretic. He got up shakily, wiping his mouth on the sleeve of his uniform. I've seen these things in action. They are deadly, Xenos, uncontrollable. They're not Xenos, as you would understand it, said Protoss. But they are dangerous, if handled incorrectly. What I offer you is not without precedent. It was done once on Astagar. It can work. The name was familiar to Heretic. What of the Ultramarine worlds? Quite so. A single titan give it a true soul. The result of sorcery and prayer. Alas, the work was undertaken by the 17th Legion alone, not supported by a magos of the arts like myself. The machine was unstable, and ultimately defeated by the 13th Legion Astartes. Then why do it? Because, though flawed, the engine of Astagar was a glorious thing, said Protoss. It showed us the possibilities. We have refined the science. Our way is better, stable, permanent. Sota Newell herself perfected the process. She really is quite inspiring. She did the final experiments on herself. If that is true, she's insane. She is powerful. She is anointed. Madness, said Heretic. The beings of the warp are abominations. You follow this religion yourself, you realize, said Protoss. There are limits to devotion, said Heretic. My first master is the machine god. And the god of war? A useful ally, nothing more, said Heretic. Then you say no to my proposal? The problem with you priests is that you never take a hint. I say no. Get out! A pity. You can become more than a man. I offer you godhood. I offer you freedom from these difficulties you are experiencing. He gestured at Heretic's head, his shaking hands. You are ill, yes? Your order seeks close bonds with their god engines, and that is a laudable goal. But the MIU was never intended to bring man and machine into perfect union. You push the limits of its capabilities and of yourself. These pains, the sickness, the headaches, the palsy, I can take these away. I can give you what every princeps of the Legio Valpa has sought since its patent was granted. I can bring you into full union with God forever. There is a light year's distance between becoming a god machine for a while and losing yourself in it forever. A wrinkled human face emerged from the darkness of Protos' cowl. It was so old it had become full circle, and once again looked like that of an infant, toothless, pink, and smooth. The gleam of malicious intelligence in Protos' eyes were sinister, as he looked pointedly at Heretic's dishevelment in the puddle on the floor. I suppose there is, he said archly. What a shame it would be to leave all this behind. I will not do it, said Heretic. You'll come around. Your sickness will only get worse. You should be happy, Tarrant Heretic. You suffer because you come closer to your Legio's goal than most. But what we truly desire is rarely what is best for us. And it will kill you in the end. Your Titan is fighting you, yes? It will get worse. There will come a moment when you will lose control. Get out! Shouted Heretic. There is a surprise we have engineered for any who might turn the Iridium toehold into an advantage. Once you've seen what we are capable of, you will desire the change. I said get out, he said. Heretic put his hand upon the butt of his las pistol. Now. You have no conception yet of what I'm offering you. Protos gave him a knowing look. Ah, well, I'll be seeing you. The grav motor puttered to a higher pitch. He lifted up from the floor and floated out of the door. Eyes screwed up against the meager light, Heretic slapped blindly at the door panel until the door closed, rested his back against it, and sank to the floor. He stayed there for an hour before calling Kaysen to clear his stinking vomit away. Part 2. Beta Garmin 3. Chapter 14. Broken Hive. What's everybody feeling so far? We got this new spicy fucking, obviously, because I've read a book before. Heretic is going to take the deal before the end of this novel. It's like it's Chekhov's Demon Pact. He's going to take it, and I'm gonna guess he's gonna get killed by his daughter. Controversial decision. I think that's the way they're gonna play it out. Or he'll kill his daughter, find out it was his daughter, and then his waifu will kill him. Just need a second for more water. Tech Priest voice took it all out of me. Okay. Gray fog swirled around Cursor Pharaoh's armored eyes as it hunted for the lost Titan. Owing to its role as a scout, a warhound had big windows, where its larger kin had only tiny ports or lacked viewing apertures altogether. The oculi did not help in the murk. Large droplets undulated past the thick armor glass, dipping and swimming like a shoal of living things. Dark shapes came and went. With human vision, it was impossible to say if they were solid objects or thicker patches of vapor turning back upon themselves to create the illusion of form. Jahani Jahan heard the restless sea and felt the drag of water upon Cursor Pharaoh's feet as the swell washed over them. But her eyes saw nothing through the gray. Jahani Jahan relied upon her warlord's systems. Cursor Pharaoh's senses extended far beyond the limitations of flesh. Infrared penetrated the fog perfectly well. A pair of illuminators set into the muzzle of the scout showed invisible light for the machine's broad spectrum augers. The grainy view on the forward vidscreen was the same as the one fed directly into Jahani Jahan's mind. A grim coastline of broken metal cliffs, topped with deadly badlands of razored scrap, impossible for god engines to traverse. Sluggish waves pounded on the metal, calling forth mournful booms from the newly made sea caves. None of this has existed a few months ago. It was a vista board of destruction. The remains of Jinsu Hive toppled into the Kaimus Sea. The Warhound skirted reefs of rockcrete and plasteel. Its feet stamped three-toed pools into the sand. Waves rushed in to smooth them out, collapsing the sides, wiping away the Titan's spore. The bigger waves rushed around its greaves, reaching up foaming arms that collapsed into sprume before they touched the waist. Sprume is a word I don't think I've ever heard. I'm presuming it's, like foam. It's like, when waves crash and you get the little foamy bits. So, but the word sprume is a very silly word. Um, Splashes from the highest spattered against the Warhound's viewports. Sensitive monitoring instruments warned of the ocean's high alkalinity and the dangerous buildup of corrosive salts upon the Titan's casing. The fog, too, was caustic. "Visibility 4 meters," said steersman Moderati Natandi Fall. "I'd recommend a reduction in speed." "Denied," said Jahani. "Keep up the pace. The tide is coming in. There's not much time for us to investigate the signal." As you command, Princeps," said Natandi Fall. Jahandi's mind was half in, half out of the Warhound's world. She let her soul take respite in her flesh, away from the burdens of controlling the machine. Cursor Pharaoh was content to run. The rhythm of its stride and the sway of its head as it swept back and forth rocked Jahani pleasantly. Calm reigned, although she remained on the edge of full manifold link. Jahani touched the minds of her Maserati. She felt it as Ophira Mendev in left gunnery control stifled a yawn. The edge had gone from her vigilance. Jahani supposed she should bring her crew back into deeper cohesion, but she let them relax. Since arriving on Beta Garmin 3, there had been no rest. Every day saw another battle. Nobody on either side seemed to have a grasp on strategy. Traitor formations came in at random, all types. But they were relentless. Whether intentionally or not, their attacks were wearing down the Legio. The transponder pulsed on the edge of her awareness. Not far now. The electronic signature song of a missing Legio Defensor Titan. She regretted the approaching conclusion to the mission. She enjoyed the distance from Esha far more than freedom from battle. The years of their friendship were so far back in the past. What memory she had of it became more shriveled and grotesque as time passed. Like a mummifying corpse, Esha should have released her to another maniple. It is what she would have done, but Esha was stubborn as well as condescending. I would not let her go. 2 decades later, she was still clinging on. There was no fighting around Jinsu Hive anymore. It had been burned when Legio Solaria made planetfall. Temperatures were so high the metal itself was ablaze. The tech priest said. The 8,000-meter height of the hive acted like a giant chimney funneling fire through its guts with the efficiency of a blast furnace. For 2 weeks it had burned on the horizon like a giant sacrificial bonfire, hiding the sun with toxic gases, until it had collapsed in the dead of night. The spires of the uppermost levels crashed down into the mid-hive. The mid-hive compacted into the underhive. High towers toppled into the sea, in a new promontory laid out like a sleeping giant's corpse. 300 million people had died there. Jahani Jahan could hardly imagine what that many people would look like. She had tried conjuring graphical representation through cursor Pharaoh's cogitators. Even they, with clearly marked comparators, could not convey the scale of the loss of life. And Jinsu was just one hive on one world. The death toll was unremarkable in the Garmin cluster. Innumerable people had died, billions on Beta Garmin 2 alone. There were adepts at the camp whose role it was to record these things. They struggled. Outside the Adepta and the rank and file, a name had arisen for the stupendous cull of humanity. It was simple, direct, apt enough to cross the boundaries between the various military organizations and the ranks within. They were calling it the Great Slaughter. Jahani Jahan shuddered at the name. The glory days of the Crusades seemed so long ago. Her experiences in the conquest of recalcitrant human civilizations and the extermination of alien life were rendered irrelevant in the moment of the War Master's betrayal. No one could prepare for this kind of war. Total, all-devouring, merciless. Preservation of life and infrastructure went by the wayside. She had heard some Imperial commanders were bombing their own cities, killing thousands to destroy a handful of enemies. The Garmin cluster was sinking into blood madness. Legio of both sides operated without restraint. The devastation they caused was horrifying. She had been proud of her god engine. Now she feared it a little. Arrogant by nature, Jahani Jahan found new character traits soon after her first engagement with another Legio. She had discovered caution. She slipped deeper into Cursor Pharaoh's mind. The Legio Defensor identification signal called to her. Bodily fatigue receded. She was lifted up by Cursor Pharaoh's uncomplaining strength. But even so, she needed to disconnect soon. She needed sleep. Her head throbbed and she felt sluggish. Her response times were way down, her thoughts thick and syrupy. She concentrated, forcing herself to think. Readings could be falsified. It would not be the first time a friendly signum had been used as a lure in an ambush, but it had to be inspected. All right, she ordered, mentally forcing the head to turn as she issued the command. They would follow the signal. She chose a roundabout path around the newborn coast and let herself blend further into Cursor Pharaoh's being. Cursor Pharaoh's neural jack dragged at the back of Jahani's skull. Her neck muscles ached with the effort of supporting it. Her thoughts strayed to Legio Volpa more and more often. The day at Bifex, when Volpa had given them a glimpse of their true nature, had been a foretaste of what was to come. She had known from the moment the Legios met each other that Volpa were callous. In the aftermath, it was not only relations with Legio Volpa that had been poisoned. The crews had changed. The machines had changed. Goth machines were engineered for war, but though their souls were aggressive, every engine took on the imprint of its pilots. And over time, as echoes of dozens of women were left upon them, their personalities were shaped one way or another. The war machines of Legio Solaria had been as disgusted at Volpa's actions as the crews. Emotions were intensified and reflected back onto their crews by the manifold. The moment Volpa showed their true colors, Jahani Jahan's friendship with Esha Ani Mohana had come to an end. Jahani told herself she was ashamed to have showed weakness in front of her princeps. She had panicked when Volpa walked into Bifex, but the real reason was Ebony Luce. It was always Ebony. When she had found out about the pregnancy, she had been glad for her friend. Things were different then, before Bifex. I'm with child, Esha had told her. She came straight out with it one evening. It had been a day of sunlight, a few months before their transit to Dendrica had the first steps on the path that led them to Bifex. Are you serious? Jahani said. She was reading in an alcove of a high window, looking out over the tiered paddy fields of Barkin's world. There had been time for leisure, once upon a time. Absolutely. Esha's face glowed with the news. Jahani smiled. Her friend might have looked ecstatic, but Jahani had been around women when they had discovered they were unexpectedly pregnant. Shock was the first emotion, every single time. Whether they hid it or not, they felt it. How? Said Jahani. She laid her book face down on the cushion. Barkin's world was a pretty planet, or rather, what was left of it after compliance was pretty. Light reflected off the stepped fields in sinuous blends over the molded plaster ceiling. Esha smiled. Jahani's eyes widened. No! That princeps with Volpa? Heretic! You needn't say it like I'm about to elope. It was but the once. He's too sure of himself for me to pursue the relationship. Coming from a Titan princeps, that is a statement rich in irony, Jahani said. She picked up her book again. No congratulations, said Esha. Jahani looked over the top of the book. Congratulations. You're not happy for me, said Esha. She sat down beside her friend. Now that your hormones talking, Machine Force and Omnissiah alone knows what they'll do to Bestia Est. Have you ever been aboard a broody war engine? She shook her head. I have. Jahani, please, said Esha. She was upset. That was not like her. I'm sorry. Jahani reached out a hand and clasped Esha's. Seriously, I meant it. Then you are pleased? So long as I don't have to help you raise the thing, I'm very pleased. What are you reading? Some religious tract I found on one of the Delus. Lectitio Divinitatis. It's very ornate, a hard read. Is it interesting? In a disturbing kind of way. These people believe the Emperor's a god in his own right, not the Omnissiah, something else. Completely against the Cult Mechanicus and the Imperial truth. Really? Esha frowned. Really? Jahani said. You better get rid of it. I suppose. She looked at the cover. What are you going to do with the child? What do you mean? Come on. You have to think about it. Will it remain with us or go to them? What agreement did you reach? Hey, Tyler, welcome. No gene contract was exchanged, said Esha. It really was unexpected. I don't know. Something was exchanged, said Jahani with a smirk. So this is totally unofficial. Completely. A spur-of-the-moment tryst. Will she join us? If it is a she, if not, then he'll go to the priesthood. Cock and tooth, you didn't even choose the sex, said Jahani. I did not plan for this to happen, I keep saying. Then tell me, Jahani said, when did it happen? Where? Before the greeting banquet, she hesitated, at the moment of exchange in the Hall of Armaments. Esha, said Jahani, mock scandalized, and where the god machines could see, you should be ashamed. She was joking, mostly. Esha laughed. What use is life if you don't live it a little every now and then? Now, years later, Jahani Jahan reflected on those words. There was no time to live anymore, only fight to survive. Esha's quiet joy at the child imminence turned to shame when ties were broken with Legio Volpa. Jahani had grown cold towards her when she had decided to carry the baby to term. She admitted it freely. It seemed harsh, but it was what it was. A friendship forged in the manifold was among the strongest of all. Their estrangement had hurt them both, but she could not countenance welcoming the genes of that Legio into the Imperial Hunters. She still struggled. Ironically, she had nothing personal against Apani. She was a good princeps, if a little headstrong. It was the principle of the thing. Esha had put herself before the Legio. She could never forgive that. Legio first, she said to herself. Always Legio first. Princeps? Natandi Fall spoke tersely. Princeps, ahead! Princeps, you're drifting! All halt! Natandi Fall spoke out and brought the Titan to a stop. Cursor Pharaoh reluctantly complied. It set its legs firm against the surging of the ocean. What is happening? Jahani Jahan dragged her attention away from her memories. You were machine lost, Cursor Pharaoh. Oh, you were machine lost. Cursor Pharaoh requires guidance here. We would have walked on into danger were it not for me. Natandi Fall was too sure of herself. She had her sights set on Jahani's throne. I am in control. See for yourself, Princeps. Ahead. Our way is blocked. The visual feed was never deactivated, but a Princeps was fed so much information, they were trained to compartmentalize it. To see what the Titan saw before her eyes, she had to focus, her attention had to be active. She looked within herself. Through Cursor Pharaoh's auguries, she saw a cliff extending upward into the sky. There was a slight curve to it. Besides that, it was featureless, a single giant slab of plasteel bonded rockcrete, part of the outer shell of the fallen hive. Your orders, Princeps? Jahani had Cursor Pharaoh pace around to face the coast. The wall cliff sliced through the debris that made up the new shoreline, laying down a mighty headland. Water sucked itself into churning eddies around skerries of metal and shattered rockcrete. Within the compacted mass of the cliff was evidence of cavities. Machine halls and great conduits crushed down to the size of ration tins. There was no way through in that moment. The water was deepening by the moment. Waves rocked Cursor Pharaoh as the tide came in. Go out. Princeps? Deeper. Go out into the sea. Take us around the obstruction. The water will cover us over, said Callous Nen, Cursor Pharaoh's Moderati Oratorius. The cliffs are impassable. The machine is proof against the void. Water cannot harm it. 80 degrees right now. As you command, Princeps, said Natandi Fall. Jahani let Natandi Fall pilot the Titan without her direct input. She kept her mind above the manifold, watching as much through the Titan's cockpit windows as through its eyes. The mist was thinning. The cliff was visible intermittently through the oculus. Now seen with human sight, the view was as gray and miserable as it had appeared in monochrome heat vision. Turn executed. Relinquish control, Jahani ordered Fall. She pushed her mind deeper into the link with the machine. The Titan and she came close to full union, and together they walked into the ocean. The seabed shelved off quickly. The new cliffs had forced the coast far out into the water, and although the Kaimus Sea's sub-littoral region had a gentle slope, the edge of the continental shelf was close. Within 100 steps, the water rose to Cursor Pharaoh's waist. As it waded forward, it collected the rubbish of industry ejected into the water over millennia. Long-lived plastics, yellowed by exposure to the sun, joined together with the carbonized debris of the hive's demise into a raft of rubbish around the Titan. Soundings indicate the shelf ends close to the edge of the barrier, said Callous Nen. We've seen it, said Jahani Jahan. Her eyes were closed. Her primary sensory input was that of the Titan. Cursor Pharaoh's simple soul merged with her own. We proceed. The water came up to the Titan's head. The cliff seemed no more negotiable. Waist-choked water slapped at the Titan's canine muzzle. The waves touched the base of its viewports. Seal atmospheric vents, ordered Jahani. Prepare cooling systems for density change. The bigger waves washed over the windows, getting higher and higher. The top of the armor glass showed clearer air near the top. A submarine view in the rest. The clear, well-defined line of the water's meniscus divided the two. When that sliver of air was gone, the head plunged beneath the surface, and only the curved back of the Warhammer remained above water. The sound of the reactor shifted as its cooling system took on water instead of air. The shimmer of exhaust heat was replaced by a blast of roaring steam that subsided to a bubble as it submerged completely. Now entirely underwater, the Titan leaned forward, to better push against the resistance of the sea. The edge of the shelf is close. Water depth increased greatly 930 meters from our position, increasingly more so thereafter, said Kalisnen. I'm aware, said Jahani Jahan. The clouded water was opaque, even to the infrared, and she was forced to rely on high-intensity sonar bursts. The contours of the seabed raced through her mind with each pulse. The seabed had buckled with pressure ridges under the weight of the hive, making the going difficult. Debris from the hive collapse worsened the situation. Cursor Pharaoh pushed on, unperturbed by the change in medium. It moved through. The machine's swaggering walk was exaggerated in the water, although it had ceased to swing its head back and forth but pointed its nose in the direction of travel, changing the whole feel of the Titan's motion. The great black guillotine blade of the hive section reared high beside them, its leading edge cutting the water as far as the machine could see. To their right, the prospect was hardly lighter. A shift from black-brown to gray-brown was all that defined what was obstacle and what was open sea. Edge of continental shelf, 40 meters, warned Kalisnen. She too was deep in the manifold and her voice was quiet. We see the end, said Jahani. The artificial cliff ended abruptly, the top part sheared off by some apocalyptic starship weapon. At the surface, where the sun shone off the rolling waves, brighter metal glinted. A narrow ledge ran in the front of the wall, no more than 15 meters wide. Beyond that, the seabed plunged into the inky blackness of the mesopelagic zone. We go forward, said Jahani Jahan. The Titan saw the danger and moved cautiously. The blackness to its right seemed to move upwards, from the deeps poised to swallow them all. Cursor Pharaoh walked in front of the promontory with a somnambulous. That is, I know it's supposed to be like a sleeper because it has somna in it, but a somnambulous, just a really awkward word to say, slow gait. To their left, the strata of the hive shell were laid open for them to see. 6 meters of plasteel bonded to rockcrete, then a thick ferrocrete layer honeycombed for strength and lightness. Its cavities already being colonized by Beta-Garmin 3's aquatic life. What remained of the world's native ecosystem was hardy enough to tolerate the polluted sea. The toxic corpse of the great hive posed it no difficulties. Steady, said Jahan. Titandeath lent her mental strength to guide the Titan. Beyond the hive casing, scrapes of the internal structure clung on, a briar patch of tangled metal that projected beyond the shell limit. Strong currents welled up from the marine depths, mixing with the shore drift to create a mess of vortices. Thickets of metal swayed like weeds in the flow. Cursor Pharaoh slowed. 1 second, take some water. Steady! Jahani Jahan ordered. The Inferno cannon caught on a projecting spar and squealed along it. The Titan's foot slipped. The impact of metal on metal resounded up the Titan's left leg. Cursor Pharaoh tilted to the right, although through the right eye the ocean waited. Jahani Jahan brought Cursor Pharaoh to a halt before it could topple over. Half a dozen tosins sounded at once. Fouling around the left claw, reported Ophira Mendev. We didn't see it, said Jahani, speaking for the machine as much as herself. Callus, integrate with the sensorium. Aid me. Yes, Princeps. With Callus's help, the radar image sharpened enough for Jahani Jahan to see the snag of metal caught around Cursor Pharaoh's ankle. I'll pull us out, she said. Increase reactor output. The machine song deepened. The Titan tensed. The left leg pulled hard against the snare. Something gave, and Cursor Pharaoh lurched. Jahani brought her machine to another halt. The right foot was at the edge of the abyss. Freedom lay 50 meters further on. Machine God, I beg you, preserve your strength, preserve your servants, and your devices, she thought into the manifold. Full power to locomotors, she commanded. The whine of climbing power output sang in the cockpit, joining the trill of alarms in holy chorus. The Titan leaned, its left foot moved. Jahani took a step with the right, moving the claw away from the edge of the cliff. Machinery pushed to its limit howled its anguish through the Titan's structure. Without warning, the snag gave way. Cursor Pharaoh lunged in the water, tottering out to the cliff edge again. It hung at the point of disaster as upswells of water buffeted it, before Jahani Jahan forced the machine back from the edge and around the last of the obstacles. Cursor Pharaoh picked up speed. The transponder signal throbbed in Jahani Jahan's mind, aligning herself directly with the source. Jahani Jahan pushed the Titan back inshore. Cursor Pharaoh emerged into a bay of metal. Brighter light than air appeared at the top of its oculi. A body banged into the armor glass. Cursor Pharaoh's eyes revealed many more. The water was carpeted with corpses. Thousands of them had been corralled by the currents in the new bay. They lolled on the waves. Let's say that. Turning the ocean's churn into a lazy rolling. They were bloated by submersion, eaten at by the corrosive nature of the water. The water teemed with tiny crustaceans nibbling at this bounty. The water had become a soup. While Cursor Pharaoh had been submerged, visibility had improved to several hundred meters. The carpet of corpses stretched into the distance. Jahani Jahan ignored the dead and marched onwards towards the shore of broken rockery and shorn metal. Waves threw corpses up onto the debris and plucked them back down. Cursor Pharaoh waded through the water and the flesh. Bodies thumped onto the Cizella. Water cascaded down its sides. "The signal is ahead," said Jahani Jahan. They rounded a jagged island of tangled industrial machinery into another bay full of corpses, and towards another headland. They turned back out to sea to pass it, facing out over an ocean sealed beneath human flesh, then back inshore again. "Hey Thomas, welcome, welcome." Passing the headland, they cleared the major part of the spire wreckage. The last shreds of mist were scudding away under a rising breeze. Sunlight broke through clouds of smoke. The greater body of the city was a black heap in the distance, studded with raging fires. Foothills of piled hablocks and outlying industrial facilities climbed up to the wreck. The remains of docks reached out into the sea. Carefully, Cursor Pharaoh picked its way through the ruins of millions of lives. The streets were choked with bones stripped of flesh by bioweaponry. Cursor Pharaoh's feet crushed them to powder. The signal of the missing Legio Defensor Titan squealed in the cockpit. They turned a corner and the dead Titan was ahead, sprawled into the sides of a warehouse, a greater corpse in a world of corpses. Cursor Pharaoh stalked over to its fallen kin. The machine was a Rapier-class scout, a lighter, swifter machine than even a warhound. "I've not seen one of these for a while," said Fall. "The alacrity of thought, this is the missing engine. The transponder signal is standard Imperial recognition pattern," said Calisnan. "And did that start to mean something? When did that start to mean something again?" said Fall. "It could still be a trap." Jahani Jahan shut her eyes and reached through the maniple into Cursor Pharaoh's extensive Auspex suite. "No sign of life, no mechanisms active. We are in the land of the dead. Bring us around it," said Jahani Jahan. She shucked off her princeps harness and paid out the neural link cable so she could get close to the window. "Halt!" The rapier was so much twisted wreckage, there was no chance its 3 Moderati could have survived. The devastation was total. The weapon that had brought it low left little more than blackened adamantium bones and a portion of the torso. "Whatever did this was powerful." Jahani Jahan looked around. "Do you have confirmation of identification?" Calisnan frowned. "There's weak activity from the Titan's infospheric links. I'm attempting to boost it." Her hands moved over her station's manual control deck. Electronic screeching puttered out of the speakers, grew in volume, and resolved itself into a tortured harmony of binaric. Cursor Pharaoh systems translated the sounds into words, and lit themselves in trails of phosphor all over the Cicella's internal screens. I'm the Titan, alacrity of thought. I am no more. I'm the Titan, alacrity of thought. I am no more. I am the Titan, alacrity of thought. Profound sorrow overtook the crew as they listened to the machine's lament. Cursor Pharaoh shifted on its great pistons. It stood erect and scanned its hound's head across the desolate surroundings. There was not a living thing to be seen. Jahani stared down at the wreck a moment longer, then returned to her throne. We found what we came for. We will return to base. There's no sign of the crew, Jahani, said Callisnan. Should we look? We will not find any, she said. If they were not dead when the Titan fell, they will be now. Look at this place. It's a maze. The water is toxic, the air is barely breathable. There are no further signals. It would be unwise to linger here. Magos Perontius. She depressed a manual Vox switch in her throne, connecting her with the Titan's reactor chamber. Have you seen what the Cursor Pharaoh sees? I have. Is the alacrity of thought salvageable? Regrettably not, the Mago sighed. Do not let his remains and the machine's spirit fall into the hands of our foe. I agree. She clicked the Vox link off and settled back into her throne. Natandi, take us back and target the wreck. Ophira Demonsini fire at will. Cursor Pharaoh took a few paces backwards, knocking down the remnants of walls and walkways as it lined itself up on the dead Titan. Jahani snapped the locks of her restraint closed and settled back into her throne. Fire! A gout of flame rushed from the Titan's inferno cannon, heating Alacrity of Thought's broken bones to a cherry red. The cabin vibrated as Cursor Pharaoh's Vulcan megabolters rotated up to firing speed. Thousands of rounds slammed into the broken Titan, punching bright holes into its glowing hide. The lament died along with the last flickers of life in the machine. It's gone, said Jahani. Turn us about. We depart. Cursor Pharaoh sang a dirge through its war horns as it waded back into the sea of corpses. Chapter 15. Friends and Foes. I scrolled too far. There we go. And drink some more water. Eaton Bach came out of drug sleep into a close, warm darkness without a single photon of light. His uniform stank of chemicals that made him want to retch. Hello? He said. There was no reply. He reached about him in the pitch dark. His hands patted the warm bodies of other men. He felt down his front. He was still dressed in his uniform and webbing. But his gun was gone. They'd even taken his bayonet, leaving him an empty sheath. He shook the bodies. They had pulses, but they slept. Hello? He said. Hello? Can you hear me? Quiet! Hissed a voice somewhere off to the left. In the dark, it sounded closer than it was. They'll hear you, the man whispered frantically. You don't want them to hear you. Eatonbach groped his way to the source of the voice. His foot rolled on the shin of an unconscious man, and he fell onto more prone bodies. Wherever he was, it was packed full of men. Where are we? He said. In the hold of the warden. We haven't even left the ship? His hands touched an ankle. Get off, said the odor. The ankle withdrew itself quickly. Eaton turned to face the voice. Found you! Leave me alone! Not until you tell me what's going on. Go away. I don't want them to take me. Who are you? The man made a reluctant sound. Oh, I think this is the grunting guy. Sorry. First Watcher Surik Remming, 4th Battalion. I don't know you, said Eaton Bach. I'm Eaton Bach. What a terrible sentence. Okay, have a good lurk, Thomas. Thank you for coming by. Well, I don't know you either. Now go away. Listen, you, I'm a lieutenant. This was a lie. Eaton was as lowly as you could get. So I outrank you. Who are they? What do they want? Eaton asked the dark. Don't you remember? Eaton shook his head, then realized the man could not see. Nothing. We were en route to Beta Garmin 2. It fell. We were diverted to Beta Garmin 3, he said as he pierced together the information from his foggy mind, to join with other regiments from the homeworld. And the homeworld is? Eden screwed up his face. Fasadia? Fasadia, he said. The name provoked a gush of memory, like he'd pulled a little stone from a dam and been rewarded with a stream of clear water. Well done, you haven't lost your mind, said Remming. Boots dragged on metal. The man was sitting up. You're not an officer. I've not called you sir once, and you haven't mentioned it. Fair enough, said Eatonbach. I'm a line gunner. That's all? That's all. Then you should call me sir, said Remming. Sir, said Eden. Sir Remming's tone changed. A vestige of authority returned to his voice. You remember the attack? What attack? No, then. Remming scrambled forwards. Eaton felt breath against his face. It was sour with dehydration. They came quickly, took the transports unawares. They must have got into the atmospheric systems because they gassed us all. That awful smell on my clothes? That awful smell. Now please be quiet. They only come when there's noise. When you're awake is when they take you away. Where? I don't know. I don't want to find out. Eaton sat down and pulled his knees up to his chest. More was coming back to him. He remembered the alarm and the sound of assault craft hitting the hull and locking on. He remembered being shouted out of his bunk, grabbing his lasgun and running towards. A couple other men were groaning. One began to shout in panic. Oh no, said Remming. Shut up, he hissed. Shut up! His plea was quiet and desperate and went unheeded. Booming footsteps rang outside the darkness, then stopped. A door unlocked and slid open. 3 space marines stood in the illumination of the space outside the hold. Eatonbach's eyes were dazzled a moment, but recovered enough to let him see his surroundings. He saw a space far bigger than he had. There were men like Eaton everywhere, crammed into a hold that stretched away into dimness well beyond the touch of light. Some of the men were quite clearly dead. He could not see what livery the Space Marines wore. All he could focus on were their glowing red lenses. He had a terrible fear of them. These were killers of men. Foolishly, he scrambled back instantly, drawing their attention. That one, said the Space Marine. His voice was inhuman through his Vox emitter. Oh, I should do the, Vox. I'll do my simulation of being through a mask. That one. That one. He pointed with every word. He looked upon Eden. And those 2, he said, his finger held unwaveringly in Eden's direction. Begin waking the rest. These are the last of the test subjects. Magos Protoss wants to begin full-scale processing as soon as his final calibrations are finished. The Space Marines stamped carelessly through their prisoners, breaking bones and crushing the hands of those still unconscious. One stopped by Eaton and reached out down, his hand descending from such a great height like a monster coming to steal him from his childhood bed. But the transhuman reached past Eaton and grabbed a struggling man. It took a moment in his addled state to realize the man was Surik Remming. Now look what you've done, said Remming. This is all your fault! Another Space Marine grabbed Eatonbach, and his troubles began in earnest. The Space Marines hauled Eaton, Remming, and a score of others into the corridor, where they arranged them into pairs. Eaton, next to Remming, manacled their hands together and marched them off into parts of the warding he had never been in before. The colors of their captors were clear now. Sea green marked with eyes of brass, the sons of Horus themselves. The Legionnaires were giants beyond Eaton's ability to tolerate. They towered over him, their massive suits of growling armor amplifying the terror he felt. He had to run to keep up with their stride. When the captives slowed, the Space Marines responded with ungentle handling. Armor transhuman grips broke human limbs. Fear of bodily harm kept him moving. As they headed down from the cargo hold, he had no idea which direction they were going in, or what part of the ship they had entered, but the air grew hotter, and echoing up the way came the sound of machinery and screaming. He glanced at Remming. He was staring wide with terror, skin white, eyes bulging, his crotch dampened by his fear-loosened bladder. "Don't look at me!" Remming said from the corner of his mouth. They were the last words the two ever exchanged, for shortly after they were herded into a chamber full of smoke and fire. And separated. Oh, smoke and fire and separated. Hundreds of improvised medical tables lined the room in neat ranks, tended to by terrified menials and blank-eyed servitors. The tables had been cut from iron plating and equipped with cargo straps, refashioned as restraints. All save a handful at the center of the room were unoccupied. It was from there that the screaming came, and it was to them that Ethan and the others were inevitably taken. The Legionnaires drove them with fists and curses into a circle of light surrounded by machines. Blood spotted the rusty floor. Despite the medical appearance of the equipment, it was filthy. Whatever horror awaited Eaton, he did not expect to survive it. A lone tech adept in black robes oversaw procedures. 5 men lay strapped to nearby tables, small devices fashioned from silvery metal clamped to their left temples. Servitors and frightened serfs stood over them. 4 were either dead or unconscious, the others strained against his restraints, motionless and arch-backed as a fiddle bow, screaming endlessly. "The last batch of test subjects," said the Legionnaire leader disdainfully. He clearly thought the duty beneath him. His 2 men shoved the prisoners into one line that curved around the circle. The adept pulled back his hood, revealing a face of such advanced age that Eaton was reminded of the caricatured marionettes from the theaters back home. He remembered the smell of the street outside. He remembered holding his father's hand. Up, there's out for the time," sang the story master, stalking around the small, round stage with his puppets dancing. "Down now the aged king." Young Eden enjoyed the story, but the old puppets gave him night terrors. The memory impinged upon him with such immediacy, he forgot for a second where he was. Then he blinked and returned to the awful present. His limbs were weak as jelly. He feared he was going mad. The adept, who looked like the fears of his childhood, rose up and up, much taller than a man of his age and build should be. It was then that Ethan saw that he had no legs, but long robes that swept down to the floor, tight around a circular bulge where his feet had once been, then loose past that to hang on to the ground beneath. "Oh, well, the last, eh? Thank you so very much," said the Magos with a spirit of such contrived geniality, Eaton was suddenly, totally terrified of him. The adept rose up higher until there was clear ground beneath the trailing hem of his habit and the deck. He floated along the line of 20 men, dipping down when he saw one that caught his eyes, nodding and muttering as he appraised each, gripping faces and turning heads from side to side. He stopped before Eaton, who could not avoid flinching as the Magos sank down to admire him with eyes like black buttons. I think. Oh, I cannot think," the Magos said. He held up his arm. The cloth fell back, revealing a silver augmentican. "I think I cannot think with that racket. Please make it stop." One of the serfs bowed hastily, plucked up a surgical saw from a bench of similar instruments, and with great deliberate, entirely unskilled care, cut the screaming man's throat with 4 unsteady slices. The teeth on the saw rasped through flesh gristle, then bone, each layer of tissue providing its own sickening sound. The man went slack in his restraints. His screams became gurgles, became silence. blood sheeted onto the floor. "You'll do first," said the Magos and pointed at Eaton. Eaton stared back frozen. "Yes, you, that's right, come on." The Magos hovered up and away, his silver head beckoning Eaton to follow. "Come on, don't be shy. I don't intend to hurt you. I'm not a monster. We only cut the throats of the ones that don't work, do you see?" he said, still affecting the tones of a friendly Medicaid. "I'm sure you'll be fine." A pair of menials took Eaton's trembling arms. He allowed them to lead him to a Gertie. One of the serfs, only slightly less terrorized than he, gestured at the table. Eaton sat on it. "That's the spirit. Better not to resist. It will hurt a lot less that way." The Magos chuckled. "Lie down." He fussed over a tray of devices like tiny silver kidneys, whose undersides sprouted wires finer than hair. In his fear-addled state, it took Eaton a moment to recognize them as the devices embedded in the dead man's skin. The Magos glanced over his shoulder. "I said lie down, man! Come on now, we haven't got all day." Eaton looked at the three Space Marines. Their eye lenses stared back at him with naked hostility. Hesitantly, Eaton lay back. The Magos gestured sharply to his serfs, and they strapped him into place tightly. "I am Magos Artem Protoss, a tech priest of a most high rank. I am, or should I say I was, Prime Hermeticon of Sarum," said the priest, "before I found common cause with more enlightened practitioners of the Ars Technologica and abandoned such stale titles. Now do you understand why you are here?" He picked up one of the bean-sized devices from the tray and looked at Eaton. "No," said Eaton. The strap across his forehead crushed his head into the table. He struggled to see what the Magos was doing. "Sometimes I feel the same," Protoss chuckled. "Go here, go there, do this, do that. Still all done soon. You, my friend, should feel honored. You are to fight for the War Master." Yes, of course," he said Eaton. "Anything!" The words turned his stomach, but his fear was greater than his shame. "Traitor!" hissed one of the other soldiers. A Space Marine cuffed him hard across the face. Bone broke and he fell unconscious, dragging at the man chained to him. Remming whimpered. "You might say that, but you would. I understand this is frightening for you. All this strange equipment and a Magos of my rank about to perform who knows what terrible science upon you, eh? Eh?" He chuckled as if they were sharing a joke. You're of the Dark Mechanicum." "Dark, is it? Dark?" He chuckled again. He stared at the silver device and sighed. "Dark is what our enemies call us. Ignorant is what we call them. New Mechanicum is the name we have for ourselves. And we are new, free of all those fussy little rules imposed on us by the Synod of Mars and the meddling Emperor of Terra. We have cast off tradition for the sake of enlightenment." He spread his arms and looked upwards. "Now you are going to join our quest for knowledge. Become part of the great work. You are privileged. You know I wasn't lying." I love how fucking hammy this fucking tech priest is. He's like a fucking theater kid made into an IT person. Eaton tensed as the Magos brought his hideous young old face close to Eaton. His breath was unpleasantly sugary with a hint of rot. The halitosis of a man with a penchant for sweets. He brought the silver device close to Eaton's head. What is it? Asked Eden. I do respect a man who asks questions. It's good to be aware of everything, especially when it concerns oneself. He leaned closer. It's nothing very much, something of a side project of mine. In fact, I've done very little, if I am honest, beyond a few modifications. This is a Scatoria interface system. He looked affectionately at the device. We implant them in our cyborg warriors, you see. It enables them to access the Mechanicum infosphere, and that makes them far more responsive during battle than unmodified humans. Like you. But what is relevant here for our purposes? He smiled again, exposing black teeth. Yours and my purposes, I mean, is that they allow us to control our warriors. Sadly, we're running out of warriors. This war is taking far too long. And that rogue Rogel Dawn keeps sending more and more men to fight here. We're short of reinforcements, and that gives us all a dilemma. We don't have time to upgrade the likes of you, which we could, of course. Then you would fight for us without a care, mostly because you wouldn't be capable of caring. There's no time for that. But we do have time to implant this little tiny piece of technology. With this, a warrior loyal to the Emperor and a meager measure of time, we can create a soldier who will die for the cause, the right cause. He pressed metal against Eden's temple. The wires tickled against his skin, and then they bit. Eden gripped his teeth against the pain. The wires threaded past blood cells, nerves, and muscle. Tiny needles scraped against bone. I've modified them to modify you. Just an iota, an adjustment of loyalty, that is all. The wires squirmed and plunged into the bone of Eden's skull. The pain was sudden and intense. No man could have stifled his screams. Yes, I'm sorry. The wiring is drilled into your skull. It will split now and bridge narrow gaps. Make new connections. Soon you're not going to worry anymore, and the pain will go away. I promise. Eden thrashed and howled. Artem Protus stroked his head with a cold metal hand. Shush, he said. Shush. Not long, not long. Eden bucked. He was screaming so hard his sinews stood out from his neck, and he could not breathe. And then it was over. He fell limp. Blood trickled out of his nose. It worked, he heard the Space Marine say. Who do you follow? Protus asked Eden Boke. The War Master, said Eden Boke. He was surprised at what he said, but his voice was no longer his own. His actions were not his own. Protus gestured to his minions. They undid Eden. Stand, said Protus. Eden stood. He could not stop himself. He was a prisoner in his own skull. There, said Protus. It worked! We are ready! Protus went to a bank of machines and turned a dial. Scores of servitors stepped out of the shadows and marched in pairs to the head of each table. The Space Marine drew himself up like he was shucking off the burden of boredom and began to issue orders. Bring them in. We buy the 200. We have 50,000 men to process before we make landing. Human thralls scurried to obey. The Space Marine turned back to Protus. These Earl slaves better serve our purpose. From the corner of his staring eyes, Eden saw Protus wince. I wish you wouldn't use that phrase, he said. It is so uncouth. Man, that was a super easy process. All they had to do was capture some people and bam, insta-soldiers. Chapter 16. To the South. The summons came in while Domina ex Venari, Velix Canis, and Os Rubrum were striding the sodium deserts west of the Jinsu ruins. The smoking remains dominated one horizon. In the other direction, Hansu Hive reared high, its void shield sparkling against the attacks of the War Master's armies. The fierce battle engulfing the lower levels was out of sight below the horizon, but the hive was so huge at its height soared well clear of the planet's curve, and its vast termite mound irregularity could be seen for hundreds of kilometers in every direction as a blued out mass between the clouds. Legio Defensor took the brunt of the attacks at Hansu, standing behind walls made from broken buildings, while the Imperial hunters roved the Hanjin wastes in lone maniples, on the hunt for enemy infiltration units threatening the rear of the Hansu enclave. Each of their own strengths, thought Esha. Hunting was theirs. Giant metal feet kicked up clouds of pulverized salt and sand. The flats were subject to the whims of the planet's erratic weather. Every 6 years or so, the sea surged up over the dunes, separating the wastes from the oceans, flooding them with water. What remained for years before it evaporated. In those times, the wastes were sodium lakes, transforming slowly into desert crusted with valuable precipitates and wide deposits of evaporite. The changeable nature of the waste discouraged construction, and they made for a natural border between Hansu and Jinsu. In peacetime, the Hanjin wastes were empty, but for tribes of chem processors riding giant harvesters back and forth across the waste, plowing up the surface before the next super tide inundated the plains. Domina ex Venari and its sisters were passing the blasted wreck of one such harvester when a priority signal punched into the Manipul infosphere, its urgency coding alone half dragging Esha from meditative immersion in the manifold. Legio Soaria wide call. All Princeps Majoris respond. Hololithic conference to ensue in 7 minutes. Esha Ani Mahana pulled herself a little further from Domina ex Venari's mindweave. Her soul separated into a discrete object and floated up out of the deep machine bond. She used the Titan's view screens to sweep the area for Auspec's contacts as she came back into the realm of flesh. The screen inset into the Reaver Cizella showed there was nothing for hundreds of kilometers. To use the hololithic communication table, Esha had to bring Domina ex Venari to a stop and maneuver herself out of the Cizella into the small atrium above the reactor chamber of the Titan. All halt, she voxed the maniple. I must communicate with the Great Mother. Stand at defensive encirclement. Await my orders. She put Domina into a standby trance, trusting to the others on the crew to manage the Reaver while it was semi-dormant. She unclicked the neurotether from the back of her skull, wincing at the data spikes dragging out of the socket. Getting out of her chair and into the atrium without kicking her Maserati in the back of the head always posed a challenge, even after years of practice. She was getting older and her limbs were stiffer. After hours of bodily inactivity, the door was more difficult to exit than it had been to enter by. But at least once out in the atrium, she could stand, more or less. Omega-6 had prepared the small chart table projector for her. When she entered, she bowed silently and withdrew down decks. Esha sat herself in the atrium sole chair, tugged off her glove, and pressed her fingertip to the ident plate. The machine chimed. A host of small figures, both seated and standing, flickered into being over the desk's obsidian projection plate. Chart desks were hollow projectors of a mean sort, intended for graphical display rather than live feed of human subjects. Consequently, the great and good of the Legio were represented by poor light models, striated by bars of shadow and flickering at a frequency that encouraged eye strain. Few other lights showed in the atrium. A couple of green-black screens and a number of status lights blinked themselves in the gloom. The hololiths were arctic bright, the glare further compromising their quality. Esha looked across the assembled commanders. Among the Legio's personnel were 2 guests. Colonel Vanis of the Facadian Heavy Infantry and Guillaume Ferre, 3rd Princeps Majoris of the Legio Defensor. The images of the guests were more degraded by static than those of the Legio Solaria. Weapons discharge and void shields interfered with their broadcast from Hansu Hive. The discussion was already underway when Esha joined them, and the Great Mother interrupted Vanis in order to welcome her. Esha Ani Mohana, daughter, said the Great Mother, who alone was not represented by a figure, but spoke as a disembodied voice. Jahani Jahan has discovered the fate of Legio Defensor's missing scout. A great deal of good it did us, complained Vanis. What happened? They're all dead, said Jahani's light image. Her eyes looked past Esha's face. Titan, crew, and tech priest. What killed them was not apparent. It was possible it was other engines, though I read none on Cursifero Sensorium. I can say that it was powerful. The rapier exhibited the signs of a quick death. Orbital strike? Suggested Oshamir, Princeps Majoris of 11/13th Maniple. It is possible, said Jahani Jahan. Whatever it was, we can assume our southern flank is at risk. There's no indication of overflight by traitor forces in that sector, said Vanis. Their fleet is far too busy pounding our positions here for that, said Ferre sardonically. They could have struck from Beta Garmin too, a missile maybe, servitor guided, said Dorada Fall, whose Titan Steel Huntress was patrolling the far southern limits of the Hanjin Waste with Procul Videns in support. Proki Videns, maybe. Unlikely, said Esha. Yes, but possible. However it occurred, it has occurred, said Ferre. I'm saddened to learn of yet more brave comrades lost to this war. Death happens to us all, said Vanis. It can strike without warning. We may never know what happened. To save on transmission bandwidth, the audio cut in only when one of them spoke. Whenever the colonel opened his mouth, the distant scream of plummeting shells accompanied his words over the vox waves. It does, but not always like this, said Ferre. This is happening too often. What do you mean? Asked Esha. Princeps Signoris Fari has lost contact with all of his patrols, said the Great Mother. I see, said Esha. The enemy are becoming better organized. Their attacks are more focused, harder to anticipate, said Ferre. Our engines are suffering. I see the hand of the War Master here. Our esteemed ally speaks the truth, said Vanis. As Iron Warrior's Siege Battalion is establishing an engineering camp outside the range of the lighter hive guns. We've got the heavier artillery zeroed in on them, but they're void protected. I fought those scum before. It won't be long before they return fire on all positions targeting them. Whether on the ground or in orbit, they won't stop until the counter batteries are silent. After that, the real trouble begins. That's an unwelcome development, said Fall. Unwelcome? You understand the gravity of what I said, said Vanis. I had not heard of Ferre's problems until yesterday. The felling of Defensor's patrols is worrying. When the Iron Warriors are ready and move in, I'm nearly as sure as a man can be that we'll see the opening of a second front to the south. It's effective, it's predictable. They don't need to be too clever, said Ferre. They have the numbers and the upper hand. Without better coordination, Beta Garmin 3 will go the same way as Beta Garmin 2. If you allow me to pull in some of my engines from search and destroy missions, I can offer third and second maniples to form a picket line against the remains of Jinsu. You will have more, said the Great Mother. 7 maniples under your command. All prior orders are rescinded. You are assigned to this demi-legio as of now. You will muster in force and prepare to thwart any attack from the south. If it doesn't come, Then we shall resume our prior role. It will come, but you will not fight alone. The environment out there is not the gentlest, but a solid man can brave it out. This morning I requested reinforcements from Lord General Bolivar. I received a code communique shortly after. There's a Fasadian regiment inbound from System's Edge. It has been diverted to the wastes. I've received confirmation of their arrival. They will aid you in holding the ground. Oh, it's the mind-controlled regiment. Yay! What about our own support troops? Asked Esha. Our Scitarii and Secretarii are fully occupied here with Legio Command, said the Great Mother. The reinforcements Lord General Bolivar promises will provide adequate ground support. I have already dispatched Baron Honto and 14 Lancers of Knights to your aid. He will arrive at the rendezvous tomorrow. Leave the smaller dangers to us, Princeps Signoris, said Vanus. We need you sharp to clear away enemy armor and god machines. Should they manage to land any, Emperor forbid, Hansu can repel an infantry assault of any size, but if Titans come against the south, the situation will spiral out of our control. Rally your engines quickly, Huntress, urged Fere. If our long-range patrols were slain for a purpose, it is to keep their plans secret. The enemy will be quick to exploit the opening. They will not announce themselves. One might say they have, said Esha. What if they are acting as they desire? What if the destruction of the patrols is a goad? Your point, Princeps Majoris, said Vanus. It might be a ruse to draw us away, a trap even. It may be, but you must hold the south, said Vanus. You'll have 45 guard engines at your command. With my countrymen at your side, you should be able to resist, even if this is a ploy. I do not see what other choice we have. We must respond. Great Mother? Asked Esha. Their commands are my commands, Princeps Signoris. Legio first, my daughter. Legio first, Great Mother, said Esha. The hall was contracted to points of light with a dying whistle. Esha swayed in the dark a while. She took off her other glove and rubbed the heels of her hands onto her eyes. She was tired beyond the point of exhaustion. Not even the strength of Domina Ex Venari could keep it wholly from her. When in the manifold the machine's strength kept her going, but disconnected as she was now, fatigue hit her like a falling building. Her eyes closed, disconnected images filled the theater of her mind. Old fights, old friends, regretted situations tormented her. They played out differently in ways that could never change anything. She jolted, fearing she had fallen asleep. She fetched herself a plastic bladder of water from a storage unit and drank most of it down. The rest she poured into her hands and rubbed it into her face, and those bits of her neck she could reach. The skin around her spinal port was sore. She took a deep breath, wiped her hands on her trousers, and put her gloves back on. The door opened on the cramped Cizella. Worn out as she was, it seemed crazy to grant the cockpit so holy a name. It felt like a death trap. Warily she slid herself back into the command throne. Damn hiccups. And plugged in. Domina Ex Venari's tireless might washed out some of her exhaustion. What orders, my princeps? Asked Yaha from her position at Esha's feet. Legio Stellaria walks, Moderati. All speed south. Chapter 17. A Moment's Respite. That's probably a good place to wrap it up here. We're about at 2 hours, and I am pretty drained from all that reading. So I think we're going to wrap it up here for today. Blevity bloop. Ooh, it was a spicy couple chapters we blazed through. We are now more than halfway through the book, by the way. We got some interesting situations playing out. I'm gonna feel so bad because our good guy Legion is 100% gonna get absolutely fucked by the mind controlled traders, and it makes me sad. um, but yeah, I hope you guys were enjoying the final read along today. Let me know how you liked it without the BGM. Does the BGM really add to the atmosphere? If so, I can endeavor to make it quieter in future streams and actually have it. But it's up to you guys if you want to play it that way. Um, this will be the last of the Titandeath streams for a temporary block. Um, I will hopefully be back here on Monday night for resuming Nexus Forlorn Legacy with my wonderful players as they're about to enter a radioactive wasteland. So I'm very excited to get back into D&D. And oh, Kaylin, I'm glad that you were being productive, lurking and twerking. I'm so used to lurking in your stream as I read. It's so surreal just having you here in mine. So I'm glad I'm glad it helped, and I'm always happy to see you here. Um, but that'll be our streams for the week. Tomorrow I have a lawyer test, and Friday I'm going to be doing stuff with Yuko and stuff to celebrate. So I will be occupado. If you haven't done so already, please give me a follow here on Twitch. Give me a follow over on Blue Sky, or sorry, on YouTube, where you can get all of my other streams. All the VODs are there, as well as all the previous VODs of this read along, so you can catch up if you are coming into it late. You can also follow me on Blue Sky to get all my unhinged thoughts, especially if you're intrigued about my week by week screenshot hot takes about Nakatashi the animation. Fucking most ridiculous thing I've seen as of date. And you can join my Discord, the Eternal Citadel, and be a part of my incredible community. I want you all to know you're all beautiful, amazing, valid people, and I hope you enjoyed spending your afternoon with me nearly as much as I enjoyed spending it with you. And never forget the most important part, which is that the world is better having you in it. Okay, we are going to go raid B. She is currently playing Monster Train, which sounds like something that many people in chat would like to have run on them. So let's go send B some love. There we go. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day, a glorious evening, a super cute weekend, and the sweetest of dreams. If you're a follower, please copy down the call to hugs. If you're a sub, please copy down the Knight's message. And let's go send B some love. Bye!